father was with Lee Harvey Oswald prior to Oswald being, shot. I mean, the whole thing is ridiculous. What is this, right prior to his being shot? And nobody even brings it up. But what was he doing with Lee Harvey Oswald shortly before the death, before the shooting? It's horrible.
Donald Trump this morning on the Fox News channel, referring to a picture purporting to show a younger Rafael Cruz, father of Ted Cruz, with Lee Harvey Oswald, the accused assassin of John F. Kennedy. For his part, Senator Cruz responded emotionally earlier today in Indiana.
This man is a pathological liar. He doesn't know the difference between truth and lies. He lies practically every word that comes out of his mouth. The man cannot tell the truth, but he combines it with being a narcissist. Listen, Donald Trump is a serial philanderer, and he boasts about it. This is not a secret. He's proud of being a serial philanderer.
Frustration, emotion, and yet another statement from Donald Trump following what Cruz had to say. The written statement from the Trump campaign reads as follows: Ted Cruz is a desperate candidate trying to save his failing campaign. It is no surprise he has resorted to his usual tactics of over-the-top rhetoric that nobody believes. And against that backdrop, Donald Trump wins the Indiana primary. And so the question becomes, if this in fact is it, as Trump moves closer to getting the delegates needed for the nomination, how on earth do you unify the party? Let's talk about that now with our next two guests. First, from Newsmax, New York, political writer and conservative activist Julio Rivera. Julio is a Ted Cruz supporter. And via Skype from Florida, the former political advisor to Donald Trump, longtime Republican political consultant, chokes me up a little bit to welcome in Roger Stone. Roger, did we really need to bring up this photo today with the primary going on? Was Trump wise to do so?
It does seem extraneous. The photo, of course, itself came from the Warren Commission, not the National Enquirer. As you know, JD, I've written a very successful book on this. In fact, a New York Times bestseller entitled The Man Who Killed Kennedy, The Case Against LBJ. In fact, the records of Jim Garrison, the district attorney from New Orleans, who was investigating the Kennedy assassination, revealed that he was seeking to question three men in Calgary, Canada, including a gentleman named Rafael Cruz. So it's a historical footnote. I'm not sure what the relevance is to the presidential campaign, but I must say, Ted Cruz, a man who said his wife cashed in her retirement to pay for a Senate campaign, and then we learned that he had taken a secret sweetheart loan from Goldman Sachs, the Wall Street bank where his wife worked, is hardly the guy to call anybody a pathological liar.
Let me turn to Julio Rivera, who makes no secret of his support of Ted Cruz. But Julio, facts are facts, and the numbers and the delegates continue to pile up for Donald Trump. Let me ask you the question that Chuck Todd tried to ask your candidate on Sunday on Meet the Press. If Mr. Trump is the Republican nominee, Julio, will you support him?
I can't see myself supporting a progressive. The issue that I have with Donald Trump is the fact that he hasn't stayed steady on any one of the platform positions. It seems that he's been making it up as he's going along. On immigration, which is the big issue that he grabbed a lot of conservatives with, if you analyze his quotes after the initial proclamation of building the wall and deporting people, I mean, the initial imagery was that he was going to do what Eisenhower did back in the 50s, which is round people up and get them out of the country. Even if you deport everyone and you let them right back in, which is touchback deportation, which is what people are now saying what's in practical application is going to wind up happening, how does that accomplish anything? You're still going to have a lack of jobs for Americans, and you're still going to have millions of people now on the rolls and eligible for social programs. That doesn't solve the issue.
Let me turn to the telephones again at 1-877-NEWSMAX, 1-877-639-7629. We welcome in from Amarillo, Texas, Robert. Hi, Robert.
Thank you, JD, for taking my call.
Yes, sir.
My comments are that I think Trump should consider Condoleezza Rice as his vice presidential running mate. It kills three birds with one stone. She's one of the most brilliant women ever to serve in the government. Number two, she stamps the female card. And number three, she stamps the racial card. I don't see how it could go wrong taking somebody of that caliber.
Well, let's take your suggestion and turn to Roger Stone, who's been around these campaigns a long time. What do you think about Condoleezza Rice teaming up with Donald Trump, Roger?
Well, since I think one of the most powerful issues Donald Trump has over Hillary Clinton is her support for the Iraq War, he would completely negate the use of that issue. In all honesty, I couldn't vote for a Trump ticket if Condoleezza Rice was on it. I'm not a neocon. The rise of Donald Trump is a rejection of 30 years of bad decisions by the two parties that have run us into foreign wars where our vital national interest was never clear. Now, whether the Bush administration lied us into war or whether it was an honest blunder, it was still a mistake. So I would prefer to see Donald Trump choose somebody like General Mike Kelly or somebody from the military who has a superior grasp of foreign policy issues and would be able to help Donald Trump bolster what I think is a non-interventionist, peace through strength-based Reaganite foreign policy.
Let me turn to you, Julio. I know it's a bitter pill to swallow tonight based on your support of Ted Cruz. But looking ahead, obviously Mr. Cruz made his choice of Carly Fiorina. That doesn't seem to have really worked out for him. Who, if you could step away from the emotion and just deal with this in terms of realpolitik, who would you suggest for Donald Trump to turn to on the national ticket if it comes down to that?
Well, you know what's the one thing, JD, that I can't seem to understand is that you have political scientists, mathematicians, all these scholars that can't seem to wrap their head around the fact that Donald Trump still needs 1237. This is not something that he already has wrapped up. With the state of California coming up, a state where Carly Fiorina was able to log in 4.2 million votes, that can come down to the last day of votes on June 7th, being the actual state that keeps him from getting the 1237. But just to answer your question, as far as a vice presidential candidate for someone like Donald Trump, I mean, I would have to naturally go with someone like Ted Cruz, who I think is capable of doing the job. As far as somebody who you pick for a vice president, it has to be somebody that can step in within a heartbeat.
Good deal.
So
we want to get back to the phones, and let's go to Washington, D.C., where Bill is standing by. Bill, we've got about a minute for your comments, sir. Hello, Bill.
Taking off.
Go ahead, sir.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. Go ahead.
I was watching the show earlier in the evening here, watching the same show, and I saw the President of the United States come out and say Donald Trump wasn't qualified. Well, I would like to know from you all what made him qualified. He never had a real job. He was in college working for a charity, comes out of charity, runs for the Senate, spends some time in the Senate, and then he's elected president. What made him qualified? He never had a real job, never ran a corporation, never did any of what he was qualified to do as a job.
Yeah, it does seem very, very passing curious to have this president say Donald Trump isn't qualified. Roger Stone, your quick reaction to what our friend had to say.
The job he's running for is chief executive. Donald Trump has been the chief executive of a multi-billion-dollar company with thousands and thousands of employees. Ted Cruz was Solicitor General in Texas and then a U.S. Senator. Both of them are eminently more qualified to be president than Barack Obama, who was a community organizer, a state senator where he missed most of the votes, and then a member of the U.S. Senate where he has literally not a single piece of notable, important legislation to his name. So the president's comments regarding Donald Trump are ludicrous.
Roger Stone, of course, former political advisor to Donald Trump, longtime Republican advisor, beginning with Richard Nixon, way back now, almost a half century.